Hey folks, Nancy Sliger, Accelerated Geology. This little video is going to be about the layers of the Earth. And so in our course, we started talking about the theory of continental drift. We haven't got to the point of explaining how that works, but in order to do so, we need to talk about the layers of the Earth first. So we can describe the Earth's structure based upon the composition, or we can talk about it based on the physical properties. So when we talk about it based on composition, we have certain terms to describe those layers. When we talk about it based on physical properties, we use a few more additional terms. Okay, so this one here, I kind of jumped down the slide presentation. So we have an inner core, an outer core, lower mantle and upper mantle, and then the black line there represents the crust. So I'm going to go back up here to the top. And so if we talk about the layers of the Earth according to composition, we have crust, mantle, and core. 3 layers: crust, mantle, core. The crust is the outer layer, very thin layer. We have also have oceanic crust, which is what the land is that the water is on top of the oceans. So the land below the ocean is called oceanic crust, and then the crust that we walk on is called continental crust. Then we have a mantle, and then we have the inner core and outer core. So when we talk about it based upon just what it's made of, it's crust, mantle, core. But when we talk about how some of the contents of the Earth or the layers of the Earth can have some mobility, then we add some more terms to it, like I said. So crust is the outermost layer. The upper part of the crust tends to be granite-type rocks. The lower parts of the crust tend to be more of a basalt. And the crust is the thinnest layer going all the way around. So the crust can be divided into oceanic crust, which is more of a type of a basalt rock. And then the other type of crust, as I mentioned, was the continental crust. Then the next big layer here is the mantle. And the composition of most of the uppermost mantle or the outermost layer of the mantle is an igneous rock called peridotite. Then we have the core, which is the central part of the Earth, and it tends to be made of an iron-nickel alloy. Now, if we talk about the crust in terms of how it can move, so to speak, that is a physical property of it. So they're going to take, and based upon some of the movement of the plates, they're going to define it. Instead of calling the outermost layer the crust, they're kind of going to call it the lithosphere. And the lithosphere is the crust plus the outermost or uppermost layer of the mantle. Then the upper mantle is called the asthenosphere. And then you're going to have the inner core and outer core. Okay, so let me go back up here. The lithosphere is what the continental plates are setting on, the oceanic plates, top part of the mantle. And then the asthenosphere is also what's below the lithosphere, but it's still like the outer layers of the mantle. The lower mantle, the rocks are very hot and they're capable of gradual flow. They are, when they talk about gradual flow, think about a real thick like silly putty, but you have to remember all that's compacted together and all those layers on the outer part of the earth are applying pressure to the lower mantle. So even though it's very hot, it's not going to be flowing rapidly because of the pressure keeping it together. It's going to have a gradual flow, much more viscous, and it's going to not flow rapidly. The innermost core behaves like a solid, and the outer core is more liquid. It has a convective flow of metallic iron, which generates, believe it or not, a magnetic field around the earth. It's hard to believe that stuff that deep in the earth is able to flow and create some metallic or a magnetic field. Okay, now, if I can get this to enlarge or not. What I want you to know is how they've taken this and they've done an excerpt of this particular diagram. So the lithosphere is the crust plus the upper mantle, and the asthenosphere is what is right below the lithosphere. Then you have the lower mantle, outer core, inner core. And the outer core, remember, is the part that is more liquid-like. It can flow, and as the earth spins, it creates a magnetic field around the earth. Okay, now, the next thing they're going to talk about is how do we know all this is here? Okay, how do we know what it's made of and how is it here? And that's going to be the subject of the next video, which is the seismic waves. They've learned a lot about the inner part of the earth based upon how earthquake waves travel through the earth. Okay, and that's the next lecture. Okay. All right.